Yeah, I'll let them know. Seats over there. It is. Hey.
Probably have.
Nothing bad, just
I have 9 o'clock.
okay.
I'm here. I'm here 5:30.
I'll be here.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna buy you guys lasers every day.
No, we don't.
I think theirs might be
You need a nap before you go to bed. That's good. I have to take a nap and rest up.
That's been closed as nap
Nap day? I'll go with
I'll call July meeting for the Rusk Board of Supervisors to order. First agenda is roll call. Present. We're all here. We got a quorum. We will continue. Invocation will be by Phil Underschutz. Pledge allegiance will be by Terry Wickliffe. If you want to remain seated during the invocation, you may do so. Otherwise, you may stand.
Lord Jesus, we thank you for life. We thank you for your many blessings. And we acknowledge that without you, we are nothing. And Lord Jesus, today we pray for wisdom, that we would make the right decisions for the county. I pray this all in Jesus' name.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Now we need motion for approval of minutes for June 27th, 2023. Any additions or corrections? Seeing none, vote for approval. Passed by majority vote. Public comment limited to 5 minutes on subjects on the agenda only.
Hi, I'm Chris Austin. So I see tonight that you do have on the agenda something about the hospital building. I think this directly relates to your discussion. I don't know if this is on. Can you hear me out? It relates to the discussion about the elevator decommissioning. So I had spoke a few months ago, mostly highlighting our dire need for affordable housing, and so many people spoke about, and I mostly highlighted how we are at an over 100-year low in population. This is why we're not able to sustain our government, to sustain our infrastructure, and it's a huge need. So of course there were many of us here that night in favor of the housing proposal. And then on the very same night, that got rejected, and also there was a movement straight to demolition. Tonight I see a possible vote to spend upwards of $65,000 on the elevator decommission. I feel that there is still time to change course and find out if all of us would be better served if the building could be repurposed. I feel it was irresponsible to rush to demo, and really none of us can understand what the rush was, what the benefit of rushing was, what the reason for rushing was. We didn't have the asbestos report back, which I hear now we have. There wasn't a copy of it in the packet, so I'm really looking forward to seeing the details of that asbestos report or hearing about that in a meeting tonight. That would be great. And I just think that before you can vote responsibly now on the elevator expense, you would need to know the whole big picture of what the total costs are going to be to demo that property and how much the taxpayers are gonna be on the hook for, compared with if that could possibly be repurposed. I hope that no one here wants to spend 1 or 2 million more in taxpayer dollars to clean that space up than they would have to. So please slow down, get all your information before spending any of our money on the former hospital building. Thank you all for your service.
Anyone else wish to speak? Not public comment?
I make a point. Bob Grimseth came up to me before the meeting. He wants to invite people. He's very active in the ATV in Rusk County.
Yeah.
He wants to invite the people to something. I don't know what it was. He wanted to address the board. Is that permissible?
No.
Good
evening. Most of you know who I am. I'm Bob Grimseth, for those who don't know me. And I am a member of the Wisconsin ATV UTV Association. On August 19th, the Wisconsin ATV UTV Association will hold its annual Northwest Regional Meeting at Players Resort Ball Field, hosted by the Indian Head ATV Club. The Wisconsin ATV UTV Association is an organization that spans Wisconsin and works with the ATV and UTV clubs, and has been instrumental in helping the state of Wisconsin in setting up the laws and regulations for ATV and UTV use in our state. At these regional meetings, there will be information on where the sport is and where the sport's going, along with any changes. Several different ATV clubs will be in attendance from the northwest part of our state. Registration for this meeting is from 8 to 9. The meeting will start at 9 and usually concludes about 11:30. The Indian Head ATV Club will be providing lunch. A free will donation would be appreciated if you're there. And then there will be a guided ATV ride down into Chippewa County on their ATV trails. Probably a couple of hour ride. A few years ago, this same regional meeting was held in Weyerhaeuser, hosted by the Rusk Riders ATV Club. We had 2 Rusk County board members there. Maybe we had 3. I'm thinking that Al was there too. As I see you sitting on that end. They both told me afterwards that they really enjoyed the meeting and had learned a lot about the ATV movement and about the tourism dollars that it brings into our area. So I'm inviting each and every one of you, Rusk County board members, to this meeting. Especially tourism, finance, and forestry should be there. And if you wanna bring along your wheeler or your UTV, that'd be great. And a lot of these events I have attended in the past, there'll be some UTVs with empty seats that go on this ride. So if you don't bring a wheeler or don't own one, or a side-by-side, and you still come to the meeting and you would like to go on this ride, I'm sure there will be an empty seat so that you could go along. Please take note again, this is August 19th. It starts at 9 o'clock in the morning, the meeting at Players Resort Ball Field. I know that you're gonna find this meeting informative, so please attend. I hope to see all of you there, and I know most of you. And if you're coming, please RSVP to me by August 14th. If you don't RSVP and you show up, we're still gonna feed you, because I'm sure there's gonna be plenty of food. And I am in the Ladysmith phone book, I still have a hard line, and thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you. Anyone else? If not, close public comment. We now have a presentation of the Rusk County Fair.
those of you that don't know me, I'm back again this year. My name is Brittany Wiles and I'm the Rusk County Fair Coordinator. I kind of wanted to come and just give you guys all an update on fair numbers and what we've been up to for this year again. Our fair is in 2 weeks, so it's August 10th through the 13th, and our theme this year is Remember When. So we're kind of using the throwback theme, incorporating the brown barn, the log building, in different ways this year. If you want to go ahead to the next slide. So just a list of our fair board members and our staff. I really want to put this up on this screen and kind of make it known who's behind the scenes in all of this. There's lots of people and lots of volunteers that aren't mentioned in here, and there's a couple people sitting in this room. I truly couldn't do my job without this list of people on the screen, plus lots more. So a huge shout out to them, and I guess I want you all aware too of who kind of helps me with all the things that I'm doing. So some statistics for this year. Entry week was 2 weeks ago, with final entries being done last week. Our numbers this year are significantly greater than previous years. So that has brought us to running into some great problems to have. We ran out of camping a couple times. We've made accommodations and grown our campground in numbers that we could. So for junior fair exhibitors this year, we have 156, and for open class, we have 94. So to put this into perspective, we have 1,467 entries. So a kid brings a pig or a kid brings an art project, that is one entry. So we have over 1,400 entries coming to the fair this year. Some of our events happening, our truck and tractor pull was last Friday. We hit record numbers by far. We're a great turnout, and we're hoping the same for the fair this year. We have lots of returning events as well as lots of new things coming. So please feel free to check out our website. It's www.ruskcountyfair.com with our full schedule, or you can stop in my office and see me. You can give me a call. I'd be more than happy to answer any of your questions. And then lastly, another reason that I'm here, I wanted to give another shout out to our gate and volunteers. Our fair would not be possible without the volunteers and the gate workers and all our fair board staff, county board members that volunteer. You guys all are awesome. And I did bring along with me my volunteer list if any of you are interested. Don't feel obligated, and I'll leave it here. Connie can bring it back to me tomorrow if you want to look at it and decide, think about it throughout the meeting. We have lots of different times and spots open, so if you don't want to work a gate, there might be wristbanding, or something else on here that you might be interested in. Lastly too, I want to just thank you all for the approval to lay concrete in the multi-purpose building. Yesterday actually, we set up that building and we have received, I cannot tell you how many compliments. It has been amazing, and fair families are more than excited. So thank you guys. That falls back on you, and I can't thank you guys enough. So I will leave this volunteer list, and like I said, if you guys have any questions for me at all, please feel free to email me, call me, check our website for any extra details that you might need, or you can find me in my office. So thank you guys.
Brittany,
Yeah.
I think you made a comment to me earlier for them 1,400 entries.
Yes.
Did you have an entry in every possible class that there can be an entry?
So yes, that's another thing this year. We have an entry in every single department. So a department in our fair book this year, multiple years we've kind of had 3 or 4, sometimes 10 different departments that aren't even represented at our fair. Last year, like, we had no cats, we had no dogs. This year, we have it in every single department, plural. So we have more than just one entry. We have numerous entries in every single department, which is phenomenal. The kids this year in open class exhibitors of all ages have really stepped up. We are very fortunate, and like I said, our barns are going to be busting at the seams, but we're more than excited and happy to accommodate and make it work. So. Do you guys have any questions for me, I guess? Alright, thank you.
Thank you for
welcome.
what you do. Brittany, excuse me.
Yes, you're
Second
welcome.
night today.
No presentation on drug court.
Honey, it should be in your email. Do you
somewhere else too, I guess.
Oh, I see it.
Should clarify that, I suppose. Sorry.
While Connie is looking for that, I think most people know me, I'm, Annette Arna, I'm the judge. This is Sarah Rand. Sarah has been interning with me, she interned with me in the DA's office last summer. She is in the judge's office interning, so last summer she did some work with, drug court. We asked to give a presentation tonight because there has been quite a bit of buzz about drug court lately. And I guarantee you it's gonna be as brief as we can make it, as anything in the court system. The drug court is really, really complex. We'll try to make it brief, and I guarantee you that when we're done, you're not gonna know everything that's going on and may not have to understand everything that we say, but at least it's something. Last Friday, the agenda was changed a little bit, and it's kind of changed again tonight. But we wanted to give you an informational presentation to at least shed some light on things, and be here to answer questions and maybe help with some misunderstandings that are about. So, with that being said, Sarah worked on this presentation. It's not exactly what we would have wanted to do, and I would have really loved to have a couple of our treatment court graduates here. There are plenty who would like to come and talk, but we just didn't have time to do that since last Friday. For another day, we will bring them to talk to you. But we are changing the name. It used to be the Rusk County Drug and Alcohol Court. We're a hybrid court, take drug cases and alcohol cases. Now, what the state is recommending, we're treatment courts. There are various different kinds of treatment courts throughout the state, so we're changing that name now. So
Yeah, you can go to the first slide, Connie. So Annette kind of touched on a lot of that. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Sarah Rins. I recognize a few faces here. I was actually one of the youth supervisors in high school, so a little bit of experience with you guys, and from that went to work with Annette, and it's been really great. So yeah, like Annette said, this is kind of just born out of just wanting everybody to know kind of what goes on and to have a really more just a clear understanding of what happens and what we do. So, a quick overview, as you can kind of see, and we can get these emailed out to you guys too, so you guys can have a hard copy, we just didn't really have it finished. This was drafted with input from Annette and also DHHS, so this is kind of a combined effort, so pretty up-to-date information, as up-to-date as we can kind of get it, 3-4 days. So yeah, the mission of the Rusk County Drug and Alcohol Court is to reduce substance abuse and criminal behavior in order to really just improve the community, like overall. We do this by providing intense supervision and drug alcohol treatment while holding offenders accountable for their criminal behavior. Many things go into determining who can be in drug court, how they're serviced, what kind of plan is going to be provided for them, the risk level, the criminogenic, and treatment needs. This is all kind of goes into as well as statutory guidelines. This is an average of an 18 to a 24-month program with also an intense outpatient program, and it all just kind of works together to mostly just reduce recidivism, but also create a better community. And so the drug court program is going for 9 years. We're on year 10. First graduates were in September of 2015. As Annette said, this is a hybrid OWI/drug court. And to date, we've had 18 participants. I believe that number is a little bit low. That number was from, I believe, maybe a previous stat. I think we're somewhere in like the 20s now. I know we have 2 currently in and 3 more that are kind of on the docket. To date, we have about 75% who remain sober and crime-free for about a year after completing the program. We've had 15 terminated, and out of 40 admitted to DC since the inception of August of 2014.
the difference in those numbers from graduates to termination can account for different things. We have people who transfer in and out of drug courts. Drug courts are strictly residential by county. So the Rusk County residents for our program, Chippewa County for theirs. So they will transfer in and out. We've had 2 people die since we started, but that would account for the other numbers.
Do you have any numbers by chance on, it says 75% for up to a year, do you have any like longer term, like 5 years later or something numbers?
So you were all given a copy of the evaluation that was done by UW Health, And the difference in those numbers, number one, that evaluation was done a year ago, so we've already changed. And that evaluation did go back, I think, 3 and 5 years. 3 years on that. We did it for tonight just because of timing. But, so there is a difference in the numbers, and that evaluation is compared to the national averages, so I'll get to that evaluation and those recommendations. But the 75% that we have for the 1 year is coming from the TAD grant information that we keep for the Department of Justice, so, yeah. That's
So-
the point.
Yeah, like she said, we didn't put any like graphs or anything that were from that report into this presentation solely because it has been here, and the numbers are actually like significantly different, like 10 to 20% type of. So we really didn't want to give you guys like the wrong impression or kind of that route. So they did go to Pluto. So yeah, so the drug court coordinator position. This is something that has been a hot topic lately. They have many duties. They participate as a team member on the board, providing treatment plans, coordinating treatment plans. They meet with the participants every week. They manage the team's activity and really just kind of keep everybody on track. They maintain client data. There's a high level of confidentiality. There's a high level of trust placed in this individual. They maintain linkages with community resources, and they develop data collections to help supply the oversight board with so that the best decisions can be made. And they monitor client compliance and also oversee individuals as they leave the program as well.
I will add, I think, one of the buzzes right now is with respect to the drug court coordinator, and one of the things that we've always struggled with since day one is retention of that position. I think, a number somebody mentioned at one of the committee meetings was 9, it's actually, we've had 7 coordinators through the life of the grant, which is a lot. That turnover is not unique to Rusk County, it is an issue with, drug court programs. It is a very, very, very tough, position. That coordinator wears a lot of different hats. They're a caseworker, they are, kind of a mini counselor, they are somebody that they have to check in with, they have to help with risk assessments. They have to do a lot of things, and for a lot of those reasons, it's very highbrow, more so than social workers by statistics, and they are kind of a social worker. But oftentimes, we have coordinators who, maybe have a background in probation, but we have a multidisciplinary team, which you'll hear about later, that we have all of, probation and law enforcement in that honor team. So trying to find somebody who really fits well in the role is a challenge. And even when we do find them, very often they take on the stresses of our participants. So when they're working with participants very closely throughout the program, and they have relapse, which we're going to have in a treatment center, they take those on personally. So when they're working and they see somebody that they work closely with who has a relapse and they end up in jail or in inpatient treatment or something, that is hard for them to deal with. And we have lost coordinators who just, it's too much. So again, not unique to the program, something that we struggle with. We're trying what we can, the reason why we have the evaluation. So right now we are in between coordinators. So again, we're struggling and the team takes that on, so.
So a lot of the admission guidelines, it's a 2-part kind of deal. One is, half of it is kind of set by the board itself, and the other half is statutory. So there are many specific guidelines. There's all on an individual basis, but if you guys can see up there, I guess, if it's large enough. Some of the specific guidelines, you have to be a resident of Rusk County, you have to be suspected substance dependency, you have to be charged or convicted of a felony possession, or a felony OWI, and a couple other things, or you from every exact one. But one of the major caveats in this is statutorily set is the violent offender restriction. Basically what that means is that if there's any reason to believe that one of these participants is convicted of a violent crime, has any reason to believe that they may have a tendency to be violent, then it's called statutorily that they cannot be in the program. So a lot of that, like I said, is set by statutory. So yeah, and all that gets ran through the team and decisions get made. There are 5 phases of the treatment core program. Each is categorized, they're very similar, but they just vary with severity depending on what phase they're in. They all include, all 7 of these are included in every phase. Drug testing, random analysis, random breath tests, random home visits, meeting with probation, electronic monitoring, meeting with the drug court coordinator, and curfew. All of these are dependent on how long the individual has been sober, how well they're performing, how well they're meeting their guidelines, and they're being set by the drug court coordinator. So the treatment plan is kind of a few-pronged approach. We use a combination of one-on-one and group therapy, with intensive supervision program it begins with 2 individual assessment meetings to specify exactly what each individual needs within the program. In addition to 3 group sessions per week, the participant also has individual AODA and mental health meetings, as well as cognitive behavioral therapy, and weekly check-ins with the drug court coordinator and probation and parole as well as random drug testing. They also complete different community service programs, different educational initiatives, all things to kind of further and rehabilitate them back into society. So rewards and violations, when an individual, we use a combination of both. A common reward is a fishbowl drawing. That is a weekly drawing of a gift card that gets literally drawn out of a fishbowl. And if they complete their goals for that week, their name gets put in that fishbowl, and they receive, I guess, a $10 gift card, yeah. Likewise with violations, if they don't meet it, if they relapse, there can be sanctions, there can be consequences in a negative way as well. So as we were talking about before, there is an aftercare program. What this basically means is that even when an individual goes through 18 to 24 months of this, addiction is a disease, it's a lifelong disease. So we have things set up to help them after they leave this program. Monthly meetings, 2 appearances before the drug court judge, they can maintain their employment. Random analysis is not necessary, but it can remain at the discretion of the drug court coordinator.
All right, before we go into the measures of outcomes, there are a couple things I just want to point out is that, first of all, bottom line, drug court is a court of last resort. We're asked not to say that anymore, like a lot of other terms of art, they change. But a court of last resort means that our participants are high risk, high need. We do not pick based on the people that we feel are going to be successful. We're choosing them, based on what we are taught in our trainings, high risk, high need, and so we're not going to get to everybody. I don't know what the national numbers are for treatment and how successful it is, but some say 5 times of going to treatment before it kicks in. Some say 7. We've had people who've gone to treatment over 10 times, and they're ending up in our drug court. It is a voluntary program. That means that the participants have to agree to be in it, and in order to do that, they have to agree by our conditions, and we have contracts and we have handbooks. They do have to be on their way into prison, so they are felony high-level offenses. They have to have offenses that have alcohol and drugs as a contributing factor. So it may not be a conviction for a drug crime, but we used to see a lot of burglaries, because they're stealing to support their habits. Drug dealing, when we first started in the courts, they would say, okay, we don't have to take people who deal for profit. Now all of the really smart people who work in this area say, those are the people that we can change behavior on. So we take a second look at that and then, change how we look at things. But they're all high risk, high need. We have to do very involved assessments to determine if they meet that criteria. They have to be on supervision by the Department of Corrections. So even though we have a multidisciplinary team that meets every week and discusses that, we'll give you the breakdown of that team. They still have to be supervised by probation as well. They're closely monitored. So, we often hear, this is not a program that everyone can just automatically think, okay, why are we dealing with this? Why are we keeping people who are drug addicted and committing crimes on our streets? Well, what has not worked is putting them in prison, which costs a lot of money. They go into prison, they get get drugs in prison, but they meet other people who have used drugs, they meet better connections, they get out of prison, they go right back to using. Right now, we have one treatment program in our Wisconsin prison system. The waiting list for it is very, very long. Most people don't even get into it. So they're going in, I forget what the numbers are for a year incarceration in the state prison system, but I can tell you that even RCJCC has looked at the cost of what it costs the county to keep somebody in jail for one day. It's $128 a day. The numbers you're gonna see shortly here on what we have saved on jail days are based on a $40-some a day cost. And did you change it? Oh, you did change it, okay. So it used to be, because that's what the jails would receive in exchange for having somebody in jail, is $40, that's the Department of Corrections contract. It's $128 when you start looking at the sheriff's staff time and utilities, everything for the county. Incredibly expensive. So then, we have people who keep coming through the criminal justice system after they get out of prison, and here we still are. So the Department of Justice and the court system says we have to do something about it. So that's why these grants have come in through the court system. And so the original goal of these alternatives to incarceration is what the statutes call them, is to get them out of being incarcerated, give them the tools they need to survive, or to succeed, and then thereby reducing that cost, but also making the streets safer because we have more of a chance that they're staying sober, and we're seeing that. But, keep in mind, we're not gonna get to everybody. So the success rates, when you're looking at other programs anywhere else, if you're not seeing something where it says, well, we have the success rate that, like, the youth programs, their recidivism rate is less than 10%. We're not gonna get that in this kind of program. I don't know, Jeremy's not here, but maybe he can talk with, what are the chances in 1 out of 4 if you're gonna get to somebody who goes through treatment? They're not huge numbers of success, but for every person we do have success with, we are saving a lot of money in the county. We're making the streets safer, and we'll get to a little bit more here with that, so.
Yeah, so there's a lot of ways that you can measure success when you look at something. A very common way if you're looking at it from a statistical standpoint is how many people reoffend. And while that is a valid way to look at something, we also like to take in other things into consideration. Things such as, are you a productive member of the community? Are you involved with your family? Are you working? Are you going to school? Are you paying your child support? Do you have your kids? How are your kids being raised? Is the community overall a safer and better place for you because of you? And something that can kind of get lost when you look at just reoffender rates is getting pulled on non-drug offenses. A common kind of thing that we use to describe this is if somebody gets pulled over for driving without a license, that is technically reoffending. Now, it's not really a drug crime, or not really a reoffender in any way, but statutorily they are, so that goes into that statistic. So when we look at things as more of a holistic view, we can take a better view as to how this court really works and how productive it is. So we don't have exact stats, exactly measure being involved with family, to be determined, but currently, like we were saying, 75% of our participants do not reoffend within a year time frame, as of like the current stats.
The longer that time period goes out, the 3 years, the 5 years, you're more likely to see reoffense, because if they're given the tools but they don't come back, and we always say the door is open to any of our participants that can always come back. We usually can see when they do stop coming, and we hear from their treatment providers that they're not going to treatment. It's not a shock to us that they're then showing up on court dockets again. But it's there for them to come back to, whether they're on probation, not on probation, as long as we're running the drug court. But again, there's only so much that we can do. One of the biggest impacts that I have seen since the drug court has started is almost every one of our participants in drug court has had children removed from the home. They're involved in Department of Health and Human Services. For people who are on the DHHS board, this will ring true. I think you probably hear things from Jeremy all the time about how costly it is to remove children. And with every one of those participants having one or more children removed from home, if they are babies, they're out of home placement potentially until they turn 18, or, you know, they're adopted or whatever. Hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. And lately, drug addicted children, we're working on protocols on what to do. The goal is to get children back with their families, so we need to deal with the drug addiction to get them back with their parents, because the sooner we can do that, the less likely those children are gonna have a problem. So just the out-of-home placement when they're children is one thing, but the adverse childhood experiences that they have can affect them in school, which costs money and everything. So I've been trying to work with Jeremy to get a handle on, there's just no easy way to say, what does it cost to keep a child in out-of-home placement for a year? Hundreds of thousands of dollars for one child. And every one of our participants has at least one child in out-of-home placement. But what we're seeing is they're removed from the home, they're in our drug court. Within, 6 months of being in drug court, they're back in the home. We're monitoring them, they're graduating, they're becoming successful. One of our graduates who has been hugely successful continuously, really had a problem with DHHS. And the child was removed. She had, horrible experience with one child dying, and the shame of that kept her using heroin. She graduated from her drug court. I would not have placed a bet that she would be one of our big success stories. She probably graduated 7 years ago. She is now a supervisor at Weathershield. She is back with the father of her child, has another child. They have bought a home. They are both working. Their children are thriving. They are good in school. They have had no issues with the law at all, and this continues. 7 years at $200,000 a year per child. Do the math. And, at that given time, we had people in our drug court. So huge cost savings that you're not gonna see in that evaluation report that you saw. You're not going to see how many of our participants graduate, even the reoffense ones who are now paying child support, who have never paid child support. We're not wasting court time bringing them in for contempt for non-payment. The custodial parent of those children now have income. They're not getting food stamps. They're not on Badger Care anymore. I can go on and on. These people do not have high school diplomas. They're getting GEDs. They're able to get jobs. They're, becoming productive members. Not only are they successful within the program, but we have participants who now we didn't have an NA, a Narcotics Anonymous group in this county until we started drug court, and one of our first participants actually started the NA. There has been consistently NA meetings in the community by our drug court participants ever since that started. So they're still helping people who are not even in the program. I can go on and on about measures of success that people don't think about and they don't see. And it's also not something that the state necessarily collects, because their goal was to reduce recidivism. Only look at whether they're reoffending. Only look at whether we're spending money on them in jail. But what we need to look at here in our community is safer streets, less money spent on all of this. Again, I wish Jeremy could be here because he could talk about treatment costs. And the drug court, we send people to inpatient treatment with our grant money. And our program is completely grant funded, has been since 2014 when we started receiving the grant. We get $123,000 a year. We do have to have a match of 40-some thousand, but we have asked the county a couple of different times to pitch in on things. One of which was this evaluation that cost $20,000. That was done last year. The county graciously said they would kick in that money because it was important for us to have the evaluation done. We were able to do it that year without taking levy money from the county, and we paid for that out of the grant. So, we made it a county position. There are things that the county has paid out of levy to help us with the match. We're grateful for that, but we pretty much sustained it with that grant, so, so yeah, again, I could go on and on about that, but.
One thing I will note too, if you guys just want like a quick point of reference, in the evaluation that was done, I believe the statewide stat as of 2022 as to like recidivism within a 1 year period was like 49%. So it is quite high, and that is a state average. So to see like basically 50-50 and have it here within 1 year being above that is good. So as Annette was kind of saying, the budget, we operate under the TAD grant. That is a
treatment alternatives and diversion.
It was established in 2005 to support county efforts to provide treatment for diversion programs for non-violent adult offenders, specifically with drug and alcohol abuse. This language here in the slide is taken directly from the DOJ website. So summarize it kind of the best I can for you guys, but if you want to know the nitty-gritty of it, that would be it. Every year, that means that the drug court reapplies for that grant and shows last year's budget, says their successes, gives stats, gives all those things for the state to give them that money. And so then when that is granted, the grant is all done by the Department of Justice, the DOJ, outside of what the county can levy. So all of that, if you want to add something to the courtroom, you want to add a speaker, you ask DOJ. All of that is managed and everything is through DOJ there, so it's not through any sort of county area at all. So if the next slide, if you want to see the actual like kind of budget overview, like to date, what we spent, this is the data from the last TAD grant we did. The source total from the TAD grant was $123,144, and with the match from the county, it was $164,192. So that kind of shows where it goes to. Personnel, employee benefits, travel, supplies and operating expenses, consultants and contractual.
To give you an idea, consultants, contractual, those are treatment providers, inpatient treatment, which we always have to save money for. We never know throughout a year whether or not we're gonna have to put someone into inpatient treatment. So we kind of have to, hold off money, and then, sometimes people don't understand at the end of the year we're spending money in the grant because we have money left over because we didn't send people to treatment. We usually think ahead to try to have ideas. This past year, what the idea was we were approved by the grantors to use extra money to set up a telehealth room on the 3rd floor. The county graciously gave us one of the conference rooms to use, and so we were able to order video equipment for the conference room. It is basically going to be set up like a therapist's office so that, under COVID, a lot of things were being done telehealth. We have really, really hard time finding treatment providers in this area. We have only 2 organizations that provide treatment. We only have 2 AODA certified treatment providers in Ladysmith, so it's been very, very difficult. Telehealth things will open up the door for a lot of things. Every member of drug court that's come through has been a co-occurring, which means they have mental illness with it. That a lot of times is the underlying cause of the addiction. But so we have money in consultant and contractual supplies. It seems like a lot of money for supplies, but we randomly drug test a minimum of 2 times a week with urine, saliva, hair follicle testing. Extremely expensive. Not only just the testing, but we have to have lab confirmation tests because if we have to go back to court and due process requires they have to be lab certified testing that does it. So, really it's, it looks like a very simplistic budget and it is in the scheme of things because there are just certain things that we put the money into. But we can modify that budget every year. We end up doing that, like I said, because we have to keep that money for inpatient treatment, and then when we don't use that, have a plan for it at the end. But we wouldn't be much of a program if we didn't at least plan for inpatient treatment, and we do send people every year. We have gotten the same amount every year under the grant. I don't see it changing anytime soon because drugs and alcohol are draining our criminal justice system. Mental health is draining our criminal justice system. So we don't see that funding is gonna change, and the state is saying, you know, that they don't think that it's gonna be changing, the funding's gonna stay for a while. I'm actually surprised it's still in there, so, even more money is in there now. Quick on our multidisciplinary team, which is the oversight that's dictated by statute. We have the judge that, is, on the team. We have the DA's office, we have probation and parole, we have a treatment provider, we have DHHS mental health, we have DHHS child and, protection services, we have defense attorneys, what am I forgetting? I think that covers all of them. We meet every week at 7 a.m. on Wednesday as a team and discuss every individual. We have individual treatment plans, so every person is different, and we have to, you know, treat things that way and handle each situation differently. Very frank conversations. We don't always agree, but we're a team and it's a consensus, so that's, you know, what we end up with. We have the CJCC, which, we were required to have as part of the drug court. That is Criminal Justice Collaborating Council. We have all of those disciplines, plus a lot more county board members on there to talk about criminal justice issues, building a new jail, juvenile justice things, anything related to the court system. We have the chaplains on there, yeah, a lot more members, and, you know, adding some more clerk of courts, things like that. They don't have the authority to be the oversight, but they are required under the grant because of their knowledge within that and working in it, and we do feel that, you know, that is the body that understands the programs, because, you know, explaining all of this to you right now, as I'm getting into my mouth and running out of air, and, don't wanna lose your focus, it is very complex. Went to our oversight, youth justice, and tried to explain things, and we get, wow, this is just, you know, makes my head hurt. 10 years of this, we can't possibly explain to you guys and do it any kind of justice. But in all fairness, I'll be the first to admit that we haven't done a very good job of that when it comes to public awareness, because of the turnover in coordinators, and that's part of their job. But educating you all is important, and it's becoming very evident that it's necessary based on all of the buzz in the negativity lately about drug court and this evaluation and how it's been interpreted. So it's something we really need to beef up, and hopefully we won't turn you off so that when you see us on an agenda again, you think, oh my gosh, we gotta listen to that again, it's too much information. But yeah, Sarah came up with this.
Yeah, so the stat from the report, so this is 2022, one of the things that they were able to kind of put a number to was how many days of physical incarceration this program has saved over the course of, then it would have been about 8 years. That was 32,000. So if you add another year onto that with however many participants, it would be greater than that. Just with that 32,000 though, that would equate to the county saving approximately $4.96 million in incarceration fees.
Based on that $128 a day to incarcerate somebody in the jail.
Mm-hmm. And that doesn't even touch, when you talk about cost benefit to the county, financially, like Judge Warren was saying, child placement, court fees, all the things like that kind of start to seep into that.
So I really want to just speak about the evaluation. You guys were all provided with a copy of that evaluation. What has happened with that evaluation? I want to just give you a little bit of background on why it was done. It was done because we were 8 years in the making, and a lot of drug courts are not having this done. Judge Anderson, who was drug court judge obviously before that, we're firm believers in, you know, we need to figure out if what we're doing is right, wrong, otherwise. We listen to the state, we listen to the grantors, but they do leave a lot of it up to the individual counties, and they monitor that closely with the grant. But so we really struggled for quite a few years and got some help from some county board members, like I said, to be able to get that evaluation done. It was $20,000. When they conducted that evaluation, which was almost a year ago, it was in August. It was the third week in August, the evaluators came to evaluate us. The day that they came, was the very first day that I was on the bench as a judge in Rusk County. And I can tell you honestly that going from a DA to a judge is a completely different way of looking at things, but being a judge on a drug court and sitting up there and trying to motivationally talk to people who are going through addiction is extremely hard. And I haven't had any training, and that was the day they were watching us in this drug court, and they met with everybody. In August, we have a 10-member team. Only 3 people on that team were people who had been on the team for 3 years or less. Not myself included, but I was going from being a DA to a judge on the team, which is totally different because the judge runs the drug court team. We had an assistant DA who was very new. We had a brand new law enforcement person, new CPS worker. We had a brand new public defender, brand new probation and parole person. So out of a 10-member team, only 3 of those members were people who had had 3 years experience or less. We do require trainings. Team members have to have extensive training to even know what their role entails. And so at the time this was done, you know, you think, well, this was really crazy. Why would we have them come in now? It's probably the worst time to do it. I don't know, it's a good time. The reason we had the evaluation done, we wanted them to tell us, what are we doing wrong? What can we do better? Are we doing something really right? Tell us about that. So now we have this evaluation and people read it and it doesn't sound all that glowing. It's like, okay, so this drug court is really a load of crap. You have these horrible statistics. You're helping people who would normally be in prison. They're drug addicted people who are kidding, they're criminals. What are you doing? This doesn't sound good. But this is what we needed to hear. And number one, I can point out, if we really were running off the board on this and doing something wrong, we wouldn't be getting $120,000 a year from the grantors. They get it, they know it, they're the experts in it. The fact that we have the evaluation done is more than a lot of other drug courts do. So then we got the report later part of the year. So we're trying to work on those recommendations that they made. And it's important to remember even those recommendations. One of the recommendations that we're dealing with is saying, okay, you know, maybe this should go under DHHS. If it's gonna be more of a treatment focus, then it should be under the DHHS and not the court. Well, maybe, but you know, then the evaluators come and say, we didn't evaluate DHHS. We don't know what DHHS is like in Rusk County. In other counties, yes, it's under DHHS. In those counties, they have their own mental health clinic. They have their own AOD clinic within the county. What works in one county doesn't necessarily work in another. And we know that all the time about small rural counties. So the recommendations that are made are recommendations. And so it's easy for people to read this and say, it doesn't sound good, you need to do this because this is what it says. But we have evaluators who have come and talked to the CJCC, offered to talk to the justice, and explain all of those things. And we have tasks in front of us based on those recommendations that we are implementing now. And we plan to keep implementing to make the drug court better. But this is exactly what we wanted. We wanted to hear what we can do better. And so what we're asking as a team is let us do that. Let us do that process because that's the only way that we can do it right. We're the ones that have been working on it. We are the ones doing it. You know, tonight you have on your agenda moving supervision of the drug court coordinator to the DHHS. I fully support that. I did have some concerns about the appearance of that for our participants when that's the department that removes kids from our participants. But I sat down with Jeremy and we figured it out, and locating the drug court coordinator away from DHHS takes away that appearance. And so it's a good resolution and I fully support that. You know, the other thing on there was to move administration of the program to DHHS. And, you know, we had a meeting with Jeremy and Ashley and talked about this, and it all came up so soon. It's like, well, let's talk about this a little bit more. We, you know, CJCC should be listening to this and weighing in on it. And this all came up last Friday. So then we've asked, let's back up a little bit and talk a little bit more about that portion of it. How does it look if, you know, you have a county department overseeing a person that now the oversight is viewed justice, but DHHS has their own DHHS board? Those things were not discussed. They're, you know, moving financial administration or oversight out of where it is now into DHHS means we would lose match dollars. And so we just need to, you know, slow down and look at those things. Completely open as a team we are into making changes based on the recommendations of that program evaluation. But, you know, it's important to take everything into context and not just look at the words on that report. But we are working very closely with those evaluators to do those things. And that's what we want to continue to do, to make it a good program,
So yeah, the next two slides, specifically like when we're talking about the things that the study identified, some of the challenges, it's like some pretty key ones right here. Lack of understanding about the program implementation components, program stigma and trust between team members, turnover in program staff that is specifically targeted at the drug court coordinator, I believe, too much reliance on participants' aftercare, a need for more therapeutic input, both with like mental health and with the drug court coordinator position, and a lack of transparency and understanding to outside contributors. So basically, county board not really knowing what goes on in drug court is something that the evaluator is able to single out and identify very specifically was on the report. So that was kind of one of the things that spurred this presentation, is to kind of work with the evaluators and figure out what we can do. The next slide would have some of the recommendations that they had would be continued training and team building. As Mr. Warren said, we do a lot of team training, but there is always more you can do and more that could be taken advantage of. More treatment options, adding alumni of the program to the board to help oversee things, improving the sanctions and incentives. One of the things that they were kind of concerned about was that the incentives really weren't enough, the sanctions weren't harsh enough. And to hire and keep a drug court coordinator and ensure that they have the facilities needed to succeed in the long term, that we can stop that turnover and really get a solid program built and up and running. And the possible moving supervision of the coordinator to DHHS/CJCC.
So where do we go from here? We're, you know, as a team, we're gonna continue to do what we're doing. We've already implemented some of the recommendations. I'm not gonna go through all of those now, I can, but you know, some things are on hold because we need a coordinator to do things, and so we will keep doing it. But even as you look at that report, just know that a lot of them have already been implemented or being worked on, and that's what we want to continue to do. And the grantors are helping us and watching us to make sure that we do that. And we have a complete open door. Anytime anybody wants to come to drug court, we do invite you to graduations, but court is open on Wednesdays at 8 a.m. Anybody can come and see how we work that. Anybody can come to a team meeting. We have to have confidentiality signed. But I am like totally out of breath. I will answer questions for you. We will be more than happy to come back and do, you know, other presentations. It's a lot. It is a lot, but, any questions tonight?
I have a few.
Okay.
So you just made a statement that you said we would lose match dollars if this was moved to HHS, correct? That's what I just heard you say a few minutes ago.
The fiscal portion right now that's being done by the paralegal in the DA's office, we're getting match dollars for the time that she puts in. That was an agreement with the prior county board when I was in the DA's office and I was getting another paralegal position, was to increase that match for the drug court because they were supportive of that one of the paralegals would do that job. So if it's taken away from Crystal and it goes to DHHS, yes, we would not get the match because we don't even get the match for all of our team members who are county employees. We get match dollars for their time, but DHHS positions are mostly funded by grant already, and it has to be a county paid position of somebody working on the drug court things for us to get match dollars for it.
Okay, cause that's where I got confused, because
Yeah,
like
it's
with foreign personnel, you told me you weren't sure if we were gonna lose match funding if it got moved to HHS. Now I heard you say something a little bit different.
We will lose match dollars if it goes from Crystal to DHHS taking over the fiscal part of it. But then in our brainstorming, talking about, okay, well, can the coordinator take back over some of the invoicing? Yes, we're gonna lose match dollars from that because the coordinator's doing it, it wouldn't be another county position to get them. But if it goes into DHHS, because most of their positions are already covered by grant now, then we would lose match for that part of it.
And what do you think that would be? Any idea?
I don't know what it breaks down to. We have to have like $41,000 in match a year. It's not a huge portion of that match. Most of our match comes from, when we put people in jail, that cost then goes towards the match when it's sanctions. If the jail does the drug testing for us, those are match dollars. So it's really complicated. We have to get creative. Recently you guys approved paying for some portion of our training in order for us to get match dollars, so yeah, we have to get creative. Cause if we can't meet that 41,000 match, then we lose some of that 123.
Okay. So then I've got a couple other questions. So you've made some statements here where person is led to believe that we have a 75% success rate, correct? But then when I go through the recidivism analysis here, I mean, it's saying that we have one of the worst records in the state for this program. So you're saying that these are inaccurate, this study is inaccurate?
No, and we didn't say that. We have a 75% success rate.
That's the way I took it, the way it was put up there.
What that says is that within 1 year of the program, those graduates have not reoffended, okay? The evaluation has gone out 3 and 5 years, which gives their percentage, and we didn't have that number. But we have another year now that has gone by since the evaluators have done theirs. So each year can be a breakdown in recidivism, and like I explained, each year you go out from when they graduate, they're more likely to offend if they're going to reoffend because they're further away from that structure of the drug court. But we also have to look at what they reoffend for, too. So not a success rate, it's definitely not that easy to say that we have that as a success rate, no.
And let me ask you this so that you can rebut it here if you disagree with this. So under program challenges, it's stating here that there's a lack of understanding, confusion among team members and stakeholders about the TAD grant requirements, budget information, reporting, etc., team roles, responsibilities in the court, understanding the roles and the roles functions. I could keep going down through this, but this does not look good.
No, that's what I said, and we totally acknowledge that. But again, when the evaluators came here last year, at the time they came here, I think our new coordinator had only been working for 2 weeks. 7 out of the 10 members were brand new a month before that. So of course they're not gonna understand the TAN grant. They hadn't even gone to training yet. In fact, the next training that was offered was just offered in April.
But then you go to page 15 here, lack of oversight and transparency outside of RCDC. Stakeholders outside of RCDC, county board members, our CJCC members, do not have an in-depth understanding of RCDC's operations, current successes, challenges, etc. I don't know how a program's ever gonna succeed if people running and steering the ship don't know what's going on and don't know how it should be ran. And if it's been in there for 9 years, I mean, I'm not saying everybody involved in this doesn't know, but they're stating the group doesn't know, is the way I'm reading that.
And that's what I acknowledged when I said that we have not done a good job of coming here and doing these presentations. And some of that is because, you know, we're all working in our selected fields. I don't get workload relief as a judge for the amount of time I put into treatment court. Probation and parole doesn't get caseload relief, public defender doesn't. We need that coordinator to work on this thing. So yes, that's what I'm saying, so that lack of transparency, that's their choice of words. The public outreach that we've done, or public awareness, I'm totally acknowledging that, you know, it can be better. And, you know, it's very hard to explain this to a group of people, and your questions are great. And these are things that, yes, we have to work on. Our team meetings are not transparent, they're closed sessions because we're talking about mental health, we're talking about treatment, we're talking about that. We have quarterly meetings regarding policy and things which are the same individuals. Those are open meetings, and we conduct them as open meetings. But, you know, those are quarterly. You know, we come to the oversight and we give a report and say, we have this many participants, and, you know, Jamie sends the budget and we say, we're on track with our budget, but we have to answer to the grantors anyway. So, yeah, this is what we do. Can we do a better job? Most definitely. Most definitely. And that's what that means there. And this presentation doesn't even do it justice. And it really is something that we should be doing on a regular basis for each county board, maybe in June or whatever, to say, okay, this is our recidivism now from this year. This is what it was last year. You know, we have the numbers because we have a cumbersome data entry program with the DOJ that we have to enter them, and we can get reports. You know, I'll be the first to admit, we haven't done it. We haven't done a lot of public outreach, and it's not a program that people are receptive to in the public because of the nature of it. So, yeah, we definitely need to work on that.
Mr. Undershoots?
I'm just curious, how many, current participants do we have in drug court?
We have 2 now. We had 2 graduate in the last month. We have 3 applicants, waiting to get in. Our referral sources generally come from the VA, probation and parole, defense attorneys. You know, quite honestly, right now, we're dragging our feet because we don't have the coordinator, and all of our team members are playing the coordinator role. So it's not ideal. We need that person in there.
How long does it normally take for an applicant to get processed to enter into a court, or is it all vary depending on
Well, good
situation?
question, because that was one of the things that the evaluators looked at, and from the time somebody applied until they were getting into our program when they did this was 200 days. That should not ever happen. 200 days, yes. We should be swift. In the last year, we were at 56. So we've already made huge improvements with that.
But, well, what's the most participants we've had at one time in drug court?
11. We have a max of 12. One coordinator would not be able to do much more, and 12 would be hard. 11 is
12
good.
are capital.
Yeah, we've generally stayed about 6 or 7. COVID, you know, shot everything. I can tell you that our drug court program and what we implemented during COVID, a lot of drug courts shut down. We didn't, and we did fairly well. It was tough, but we kept it going. All drug courts right now, their numbers are down after COVID. I don't know why, because we don't have less drug cases, that's for sure.
Do you think that COVID really hurt the reoffend rate? Just
Yeah.
because of that structure kind of being.
We couldn't have face-to-face check-ins, we struggled with drug testing. How are you gonna drug test? You know, when you're making them do saliva or cuff, we couldn't have them come in. The courthouse was essentially closed down. So then when they could come back in and mask up, we did hair follicle testing, which takes a long time, and it's not a complete absolute sobriety test. I mean, I could get into the technicalities of that. So it wasn't great, and in the drug court program, if you're not keeping up with that testing, and you're not doing that to fidelity, and they can figure out how to get around it, they're going to, and you don't have a program that they can get around it. You know, they're all gonna push that envelope, you know, because that's their way of thinking. So yes, that had a huge impact on the recidivism rates.
Mr. Willingham?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to add that when the CJCC started the discussions about looking for a qualified evaluator and someone who could provide this for us, we did look into several other organizations that that might have been able to provide it. We settled on the folks that did it from the University of Wisconsin. And we had some hard discussions for a while, because the fact of the matter is that we could have kept on going along singing song like many of the other drug courts in the state have done, not knowing whether they were doing well, but applying for the grant every year and getting it. And the CJCC in particular, but the drug court as well, wanted to know, what are we doing, how are we doing, what we're doing well, what we're not doing well. And we were ready to take it into chops if it didn't look good. And it didn't look good. And you know, we could have buried the report too when it came back and it didn't look good, but we want to be open and transparent about that too, because we think it's a worthy program, it can be a better program, and it will be a better program now that we know what works and what doesn't work.
And I will say that.
We need this continued support towards that objective.
Yeah, and feedback, you know, it's a small community in the state with treatment court professionals, and, I have been asked by several if we would share our evaluation reports, because they all struggle with the same things, and I often get, why did you do that? Why did you guys do that? $20,000 for them to just rip you apart. But we welcome it. How else do we know? It is a complex program, and we could keep going and do it the way that we were doing, and, but we wanna do it right, we wanna be successful. So, that's what our plan is, to keep going, but I really thank you all, and anytime anybody has any questions, I'm not hard to find, so, and if I can't answer it, I'll get somebody who can.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, now we got, relocation of supervision of drug court coordinator and administrator of CAD grant. Motion.
And I believe there's a substitute resolution that came out of personnel, this afternoon. So the motion would be to adopt a revised resolution that I believe was provided to you prior to this meeting. On your desk, or on your.
You got votes.
Well, as we just heard from Judge, and Sarah, this has the support, it would seem, of Judge Barna. It also went through personnel, Justice Youth Extension, and HHS to relocate the, day-to-day supervision of the drug court officer, with the understanding that that office will remain where it is up on the third floor.
Any questions, discussion? Not, vote on it now.
Bridget?
19 yes, back to majority vote. Next, we got acceptance of donated land located as part of government lot 7 and part of government lot 8 of section 33, township 35 north, range 7 west, town of Atlanta, Rusk County. And that would be Mr. Giselle and Jerry Geller. Jared, gonna speak on? Jared, you're gonna speak on this?
I can, if you'd like me to. So a couple years ago, Erica Granchelik approached the forestry department about this property. As you can see on the map, it is across the river from our Chippewa block, which was newly created within the last 10 years. And it's just south of Trails End Camp along the Chippewa River, north of Bruce, in the town of Atlanta. The family, the Grancheliks and the Gustafsons wanna donate this property to the county for free. acres out of it for, I believe, for a member of the family to keep. And I think the remaining is approximately 50 acres, is that right? Yeah.
How many acres?
50.
50?
50 acres.
Okay.
So my goal and Nick's goal for this property is to enter into the county forest law. And, Nick has, and he could speak on it too if you want him to. He's eager to use this property as an education grounds for various education programs like invasive species, environmental education of any kind. Certainly it could be used by Trails End Camp in some ways if they desire to go down the road to this. One of the goals of the family is that it remains open to the public for everyone to enjoy, walk down to the river, walk in the woods. County forest is a perfect opportunity for that as well. This resolution is approving, it's you guys accepting that donation from them, and we'll move it forward. As soon as the title transfer is done, then I will do the application for getting it into the county forest law. So, very generous of them. Pretty awesome, really.
Mr. Gazelle.
Jared, did we get things clarified that this can be in the county forest law and still be used by NIP for the educational or invasive species or all of that stuff?
Absolutely. All that is wonderful on any county forest land. Yeah. It's currently in the MFL program, and we'll roll it right out of that into county forest law. Pretty seamlessly.
Mr. Kudo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just curious, of that 50 acres, is it basically they just want it to remain as like an educational type facility, or, I mean, is there timber on there that could be sold?
There's timber, it's not ready to be sold, it's young.
I mean, would we have that advantage if?
Oh, for sure, at some point, yes.
Okay.
Yes. Alright. It is growing a fully stocked mixed stand of pine and old maple.
Mr. Meyer.
So just to clarify, are there any other stipulations that come with it? I mean, just so I know, I mean, it's still very gracious of them to do what they did. Are there any other stipulations that come along with this, other than outreach or education?
Well, they want it to remain in public holdings, so, which means putting it into county forest law. It's very hard to remove land from county forest law and sell it, so it's a perfect fit for them, in my eyes.
Right, when I met with Nick, I don't know, 3 months ago to talk about this, that was my suggestion is, if they were willing to, that CFL creates a bunch of restrictions. In order to take it out, there's, I believe, a board at the state, you have to file a petition, the state has to say it's in the best interest. The only time I believe, well, probably with some exception, that they've done it before, is we've swapped out county forest land for, I'll say, better or different county forest land. That's the only time that we've made application and it got approved, but normally they won't approve it unless it's for circumstances like that.
Yeah, they want everybody to be able to enjoy it perpetually, forever, more or less. That is the perfect way to do that.
I don't know, Jared, was or Ashley, was the letter that they sent part of the package?
No.
Okay. If I may, they had sent a letter about the donation. I'd like to see what it. And so basically the letter they sent was, and this is from Erica, Gustafson is the maiden name. It says, we, the property owners of a parcel of land in Rusk County, wish to transfer ownership to Rusk County conditioned on enrollment of the property into the county forest law program and given a special use designation for continued and permanent use for conservation related education and outreach. And then they go on, they have a description of the actual property itself. So they they want to see the land stay in some kind of conservation program, education, and open to the public. I have to admit, I probably, Jared's getting tired of me bugging him about this, cause I really jumped at this opportunity. I think it's a great opportunity to have some land that we can set aside, we can use for educational programs, guided nature trails, the list goes on and on. That's my 2 cents.
Nick's been drooling.
Any other questions or comments? Not, you can vote now for the acceptance. Mr. Kudo?
My screen went black. I took the battery show.
You guys just do this book, cause it's shut down right now.
19 yes, passed by majority vote. Now we have a change in job description for trails and camp caretaker. A motion and a second. We have a motion, we have a second.
Okay, so this is probably the easiest job description change you guys will ever approve. It's listed, so CC is, retiring from that position. And it is posted in the current job description as a seasonal limited term employment. And Justice Youth Extension went through this job description, as did personnel, and we feel it's better suited as a part-time position because Trails End doesn't just need help during the summer, they need help all year round, so. That's the only change.
Mr. Undershoots?
So the, fiscal impact didn't change at all compared to what it was as a seasonal, is calling it a part-time position now?
No, we could keep the hours the same, just spread them throughout the year.
Mr. Giselle?
Bill, basically, what that comes down to is this person has been doing year-round since, what did Charmaine say, back to 1972, I think she looked it up. But the way the job description is listed, you have to post and rehire a new person every year because of it being seasonal term employment. If it's listed as part-time employment, then we can keep the same person from year to year as we go on.
Any other questions? If not, you can vote now.
It's not letting him log in. It's saying there's something else that he logged in.
19 yes, passed by majority vote.
Sorting it out, probably.
Electrifying personnel.
Change in job description for LCDD administrative assistant. That would be Nick. We need a motion and a second.
She's still.
We got a motion and a second.
Oh, well, I can introduce it. So, Rachel is over in the LandCon office and she is, in the administrative role now. Nick is looking to tap into her talents and add a lot of additional duties to her job description, and you have that in your packet. From an administrative standpoint, we need the new job description approved so we can amend the JDQ and send that out to Carlson Gutman for a possible request. So I don't know if you wanna explain a little more about what Rachel would be taking on.
That sums it up. Again, continuing with my education and outreach theme tonight, apparently. We're recognizing the fact that, long-term, we need to focus more and more on education and outreach, especially K through 12. And so this is the next logical step is, in that process, is having somebody that we can dedicate, at least part-time, dedicate to coming up with, developing, and delivering education and outreach material and programs for the public, not just K through 12, but the general public as well. We happen to have this person in that role, or in this role right now, who has the background in marketing and education. So we're trying to simply leverage the existing position that we have and continue or add more of that education and outreach. I mean, I would absolutely love to be standing here asking the board for a dedicated information education position. That's not realistic, but what we can do is leverage what we have right now. So that's what we're asking.
And I shouldn't have tied it just to Rachel. I think Rachel obviously 100% can take this on, but you know, if she were to move on at some point, I don't see a problem recruiting for someone else to fill this position with these additional duties.
Mr. Undershoots.
Yeah, so the current job title, if I'm reading this correctly, the grade 8 is 28.1.06 to 27.08. Is there an expected new wage line once it's in this by Carlos? I'm just wondering what the fiscal impact potentially would be.
I don't know what that potentially could be. I mean, I would expect maybe a jump. Is it a step or is it a grade?
A grade.
Potentially at least one increase in the grade. I don't remember what the ranges are on the salary there. In terms of fiscal impact for this year, we started talking about this back in June. That's why it has a June 1 effective date. For this year, I've got grants that, specifically one of them, we wrote the grant for education and outreach to support that type of activity. So I have grants to cover that this year, so there would be nothing under the existing budget for this year. In my budget planning for 2024, now I've worked that into that budget for 2024.
So when you work that in the budget, what number?
I use 21. $21 an hour, a rate.
So Phil, the position is currently graded at a 6.
So this 8 is higher.
So that's the estimate of
right.
What
okay, so this isn't current. This is our estimate.
That's correct.
So what's the current? Did you say
6?
A 6, and is she on a step 1?
Yes.
Okay, so at 19.10 an hour.
Okay, I'm sorry. I was reading that. Was our current.
No, I'm sorry. No, current is 6. That was an estimate, just a guess, based on the increase in the duties. And I'm just trying to make sure you're away from your so
Any other questions? Not, you can vote now. Passed by majority vote, 19.
Thank you, everyone.
Ambulance service wage adjustment.
This is a resolution that is just specific to the ambulance, employees. They would not currently be the part-time and the way that they're paid would be call, and other per diems. So, Tom put together a resolution to bump their wage increases for 2024. It's gone through, emergency services personnel, and finance also reviewed it last week.
I'm just continuing to struggle with hiring for EMTs, and surrounding counties are raising their rates as well, so we just wanna remain competitive, to help with recruitment and retention.
Any questions? 19 yes, passed by majority vote. Okay. Providing interest in joint management, semi-trailers and authorizing use of county-owned semi-trailers. Motion second.
Okay, so this goes back a couple months, this goes back to the 5R saga with the contaminated glass that was in some semi-trailers at the Gates Building and out at the Enterprise Center. The DNR cleaned up that glass a few months back, now we just have those trailers sitting there. And so they're jointly owned between the city and the county. So the city has already run this through city council that we would, split the trailers. Of course, there's 9, so it's not done evenly. So 4 trailers would come to Rusk County, 5 would go to the city because we're getting 1 less. We would have, first choice of that. In talking to the highway commissioner, and going through the highway committee, they need some storage options out there. So the city will allow the commissioner to pick which of the trailers we would like to use. And we would like, permission from the board that the trailers be relocated to the highway department for storage.
Any questions?
So all the trailers the county gets are going to the highway department for storage?
Did you want 3?
We could, yeah, we'll take 3 for sure.
Okay, and then,
All 4 would go to highway and
Yeah,
another
if
department.
we got a 4, yeah, we'll take,
But if another department needed one and it came up, there's one out there.
okay, sure.
Any other questions? Mr. Patel?
Would I assume 1 or 2 of them would go by the hot mix plant?
Correct, yeah, we'd make sure one would get up there, we could store a couple behind the shop. Trying to keep one that's reasonably good shape in case we had to move it to a pit for storage or something. We're trying to keep one of them, that's in better shape that we can actually be mobile, we can move it.
Any other questions? Not, you can vote now. Yes, passed by majority vote. Now we are authorizing the sponsorship of students through the 720 Law Enforcement Academy. The motion is second.
Do you want me to start?
Sure.
Okay, so, we have had a patrol deputy vacancy for several months now, and we have posted 4 times. And Miranda today just, asked me to extend the posting again because we have no applicants. So Jeff is here to talk about the possibility of the county sponsoring students to go through the police academy. So we would pay for them to go through school, we would pay them a salary while they're doing that for us. But the best part is that we can reimburse all of those costs through the DOJ. So we have a draft contract written saying that if they fail out of the academy or they're asked to leave or for whatever reason they don't complete the academy successfully, that we would get that money back from the student because we are not reimbursed unless they successfully go through the police academy. So I don't see a downside to this because either way we're going to recoup our costs, and then at the end of that we're gonna have a patrol deputy. We hope, yeah. That's the case scenario.
Any questions?
Doesn't it say something about there's, they gotta work like 4 days,
Correct.
something like that too?
So kind of the reason that we're headed down this path is because of all of the recruitment classes, the 720-hour class that's going, there's very few people in these classes right now that are not sponsored by an agency somewhere. I mean, locally, Barron, Chick-Tech, Cameron, Rice Lake, Menominee, Dunn County, they're all sponsoring these kids into these classes. And so when class is over, they go to these departments because they're already hired by them, and that leaves nothing to hire. And from what I'm understanding, within a year or two, there will be absolutely nobody in these classes unless they're sponsored, because the schools take the people that are sponsored before they'll take people that are not sponsored. It does say in here, part of what we asked them to do, they go to school Monday to Friday, but 2 weekends a month, they'll work 8-hour shifts as part of their FTO program, which will enhance the FTO, so when they get out of the class, the FTO program will be shorter and we'll be able to get them onto the road quicker. Again, like Ashley said, we have never had to repost for a position, and it's, at least with the police department, same thing, they just reposted again a second time for a position. And it's not just here, it's everywhere, and that's where we're seeing everybody sponsoring these. And again, the cost of the academy, the cost of the wages that we pay them while they're going to school, their meals and gas, I believe, is all reimbursed by the Department of Justice. The only thing that we wouldn't be able to recoup is the 4 8-hour shifts that we would pay them working. But the $15 an hour that we're willing to pay them while they're going to school would be reimbursed through the DOD.
And that's in your packet, Bill, so.
Okay, yeah, I read that, I just, when you said that we weren't recovering wages, I thought that we were, but.
Mr. Schneider?
That 4 8-hour patrol shifts, what authority are they gonna be able, or what are they gonna be able to do in that period? Is it gonna be a ride along?
Yeah, they'll be with their FTO trainer for them 8 hours.
Which they normally do after they're done with the academy anyhow, right?
Right, yeah, they have to, we have, anywhere from 9 to 12 weeks after the academy, and we're hoping to shorten that up. It's all based on how well they progress through the academy.
Any other questions?
Is that anybody in mind to?
We do have an interview tomorrow, of a candidate, so hopefully, and
And the academy starts on August
August 7th.
7th, so right.
So we're
it's kind of a
really,
tight
and
turnaround.
all this has to be done prior to the start of the academy, so we're really in a crunch time here, but we can make it work.
Because if we didn't move forward with this, we would have no options, because we have no applicants.
Or if you don't hire for some reason or other.
Then the next class will be in January.
Mr. Kudo?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Jeff, I was just curious, so they go through the class, they pass it and everything, and then, a different, police department offers them.
The game we play, steal from everybody else.
Same scenario, they gotta pay it back in.
No. If we hire them, they go through the academy, they work for us for 6 months, a year, whatever, and they move on, they move on.
No, I mean immediately after. They
Oh,
get done.
yeah, if they would leave immediately, yeah, that would be part of it.
Otherwise.
But, it's no different if I hired somebody that applied, hired them, they worked 6, 7 months, we got all that money into them and they're gone. At least here we'll get our money back for what they did with the academy. So there's no guarantee, we talked about it, personnel, about maybe saying they have to work for us for 1 to 3 years, okay? What's the chances we can do anything about it if they leave?
Again, those counties aren't going to do anything.
Correct. So, you're taking the same gamble as hiring anybody else, it's just, we have to wait that 720 hours for them to get you.
Mr. Caleb?
So we don't have a time frame on how long they have to stay? No.
Cause we can't hold them to it
How do other people do it then?
Phil works teaches part of the academy, our chief deputy, assists with the recruit class. And there's counties that do it, but they don't enforce it because it costs too much money to go after it, to enforce it. And so we just chose not to put it in there.
So we could potentially be out of that money by putting somebody through school.
Well, the school will be reimbursed, And the wages that were paid to them would be reimbursed.
By the.
DOJ, Department of Justice.
DOJ.
The academy, we are not out any money on that. It's
Any other
just
questions?
the time that we lost.
No other questions? You can vote on it now. Nineteen yes, passed by majority vote.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Jeff. Creating an additional highway worker one position. Raven and Jerry Builder.
Good afternoon, guys. Really ain't creating, I guess, another highway solution. It's basically getting back what we had. We had previous workers before this. In previous times that we are kind of missing people before we went through the resolution or whatever you guys did the work study before we got raises. We were actually sacrificed a person, a position to give us raises, the earlier commissioners did. To help us get a raise, but at that time, you guys did a work study, and we did get raises, but we are still lacking workers out there. If I got everybody on days, I'm not gonna have enough for night shift, which I'm hoping to have 2 guys on night shift like we did in previous years, cause ever since Dave Butterfield retired, we always had 2 people on night shift. When he retired, I was the only one on night shift. That night shift plays a big role in the winter time for plowing snow, cause dispatch can call them from 4 AM to 2 AM. It kinda gives the other guy downtime to shut down for the rest at nighttime. You know, summertime helps with our township jobs and stuff like that, with crack sealing, blacktopping, or any of that, stuff like that. I guess what I'm asking for, if we could try to get some more people back again, I appreciate it, it is in our budget. We checked it a couple of times, it was there for another employee that, all the finances are there. There's $72,000 in the budget for that position that hasn't been filled.
Yep, so as, Scott said, the fiscal impact is about $73,000 when you consider wages and fringe.
Any questions? Hearing none, vote on it now.
When would this start?
Does it say? There's no date if you want to add a date, right?
Immediately? Okay. 18 yes, 1 no, passed by majority vote.
Thank you guys very much, thank you.
I'm gonna have a 10-minute recess.
Oh, yes, yes.
Started snoring. I wouldn't. Yeah, I wouldn't sleep anymore. The thing is, I bring this in, and the machine doesn't work. None of them will. I'm still tempted. Not like any of them. So you're doing the interview?
Very old yesterday. I'll make sure it's on anyway, I'm talking about.
Yeah, but you guys have. I don't know either.
Phil, did it go up? We were lucky. Sunday morning.
A little bit, but not that much.
I didn't realize it was going really fast in this thing.
That's what I heard.
Actually, that could be a whole
I forgot my car. Back to my car.
On your career, doorman.
I can be good at it.
Every minute counts.
Busy quarter.
Obviously, there's a smell of smoke, there might be something.
It's good though, it's good to have
Because you just let people back in.
Yeah.
Which is what you know, closed session. It's like my state. Yeah.
Sometimes I like session, even if we get I would start with all
when you guys go to closed session, that's it for me. It's the problem.
Addiction.
Better here than we can change it.
I always said, you know, perfect makeup.
Take my toys, take my toys. I didn't see that.
We're not even Sarah County finished. Yeah, but I can run it pretty quick.
My son-in-law can come to wherever he's at in the area. He was just staying home mad, so he could just throw the kid in the car and go get the toilet. Oh, good.
Reconvene. Hospital update including asbestos survey results and possible approval of RFP for asbestos removal and demolition.
Okay, so. Nope.
We got it. She's gonna tell what she wants.
Yeah. So, Gary has been coordinating the asbestos survey out at the hospital, and he got that back today, and I'll let him kind of go into that. You guys, he emailed that out to you guys a few hours ago, so hopefully you had a chance to look through it. So now that the asbestos survey results are back, I'm asking for permission to put out an RFP for asbestos removal and demolition. The companies would bid on one or the other or both, so.
Yeah, I got that, asbestos survey last night at about 11 o'clock. And then this morning when I come in at 6, I looked at it for about 10 minutes.
Could you speak up a little bit, Gary?
When I come in this morning at about 6, I looked at it for about 10 minutes. And then I had to do some emergency repairs at some other buildings, but, I see there was like, and I sent it all to you guys, I think around noon, but, I did see that there was like, 453 samples that they had taken, and 99 samples contained asbestos. And then it kind of, you'll see it's 102 pages or whatever, so it shows a broad variety of what's going on out there.
This has gone through property, and this was the direction that they gave me and Gary, get the asbestos survey done. Once it comes back, move forward with RFPs, so now we're bringing that to the full board.
You need a motion for that?
Yes.
No motion second? Questions, discussion? That's good.
Did they give you a price of anything?
I believe way back was like around $15,000, I think, to do that survey. I don't know the exact numbers.
Or is she talking about are you talking about what it costs to remove the asbestos?
Oh, they don't give that.
Yeah, I was hoping there would be an estimate in there, but my review is the first 7 pages of that read that, other than that, it's a lot of not useful to me.
I'm not reading it correctly.
So yeah, there was no cost estimate in that.
I think that company actually originally gave us a estimate, months ago, but that was, without that, report.
Tony made a motion to authorize the issuance of the RFP for the.
Gary did with Tony, yes.
Was there any other questions or comments? That's good? Good.
Was there any way that we're gonna get any idea before we say yes, we'll do it?
So Gary and I can put that in the RFP that we would require the response to include an estimate.
Well, the question was bid on doing it.
Absolutely.
So they're gonna give us a price.
Yeah.
Right.
Whoever bids on the RFP would give a price to, for the estimate and the demolition or whatever happens there.
Mr. Willingham.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is, how do we authorize the publication of an RFP that we have not seen? So we don't know what we're voting for, do we?
So I believe the motion, I didn't hear it that well, was to direct Ashley to create an RFP for the demolition of the hospital and asbestos removal.
Gary's already done quite a bit of the work on that.
But we don't have something that we're approving.
No, just to put out the RFP, then the people are gonna respond to the RFP with, their anticipated costs, enter into a contract with the county, and that's gonna come back here again. This is just to solicit.
We're not approving what the RFP calls for, what it says, specific specifications or anything.
Just for the demolition of the hospital and the asbestos removal.
I would think it would entail describing what the scope of the work we want done.
I just have a rough draft of the RFP kind of, and it's very rough right now. And then, but we're waiting for the asbestos survey to come back, so we could, kind of clarify some more information.
Any other comments or questions? If not, vote on it now.
Just for clarification, what it says is authorized the sale of cosmetic items in the multiple hospital building. Just to clarify, we are voting on putting out. Okay.
Good catch, Phil.
That's another vote.
It's the wrong motion up there.
Oh, they're wrong there.
Okay. What do we do now?
So you have who made the motion, Terry?
Well, still up there.
It's item number 11, not 12.
One for the highway worker. Connie, that was the one for the highway worker.
Got it. How's that? So who made the motion, Terry? And Tony made the second. Okay, here we go.
How we vote?
Yes, please. We can't clear.
Survey and RFP, right?
Yes.
You gotta clear the last one first.
On the screen it says that it's passed by majority vote.
Still showing updated from 10.
Oh, probably the next part.
We'll do a roll call, is that okay? We're just gonna do a roll call. Now we're gonna stay on your screen. Now can you do the motion? Okay, try it again. You ready? Okay. Okay.
15 yes, 4 no, passed by majority vote.
Okay. Now we can go to 12.
Okay, now we're up to
12.
authorized sale of cosmetic items.
Okay, so there's two pictures in your packet of items out at the old hospital building that, members of the public have inquired about. And so I'm asking for authorization to put those items on the surplus auction site. You know, I feel that they're just cosmetic items. One is a flagpole and the other, that rock, is actually like a water fountain. So I feel that even if we were to change directions with what we're doing out there, a flagpole and a water fountain wouldn't probably impact that. And the only reason I'm bringing it to the board is because we have had public interest in both items.
Any questions?
So this is,
only
these two items are what are on this resolution?
Well, it's for whoever to make a motion on, but yeah, these are the only two items that I've received inquiry on.
So if there's additional items, that'll be another resolution on the board.
Yep, I bring it back to the board, yep.
So then, if this is a case that this is what you wanna do, it would be in order for a motion to authorize the sale of the flagpole and the water fountain.
And we're gonna have to bring back everything we sell out of there.
Unless you want to direct, I guess this is what this is about, is just those two cosmetic items. It's broad enough on the agenda that if you wanna authorize Gary or Ashley to sell all cosmetic items or anything that people ask about on Wisconsin surplus, you can do that. I don't know if you wanna do that now, or if you wanna wait until after you get the actual, response to the RFPs. Should we need an amend the existing one that specified?
Let's, whoever made the motion.
Just to the flagpole. My motion.
That's your motion, okay.
Changed it.
Mr. Schneider?
Was that rock donated by somebody, a
Yes.
memorial or something?
Yes, it was donated by the ladies that were an auxiliary type thing at the Marshfield Clinic, because MJ Nelson came in and talked to me, and she was gonna come to the county board, but they decided that they didn't know what to do with it, because nobody wanted it. So they did research that with the new hospital.
I know it wasn't put there by the hospital.
No, it was not.
Any other comments?
Is there any?
Mr. Raven?
Yes, I think that we should stick with these two items, and then if, you know, the RFP come back, then you know what, if we could start getting major into this project with different items, then we should, as a board, we should know what's going on in and out and whatever. You know, I really do, I think we really have to stay on top of this, all 19 members. So, you know, I think you're right, we should just identify these two right now. Cause we're already approved getting bids for all this other stuff, and then let's go from there. Let's do the two tonight and then go from there.
Mr. Willingham?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gary, I just wondered if you knew of any county-owned facilities that could use the flagpole, or, you know, maybe a nonprofit organization that would, they could use it and we could donate it. That's just I mean, we have flagpoles at all our buildings, and
I don't believe there's flagpoles at every
I mean,
building.
I'm sure someone wouldn't need one, but.
Yeah, I don't believe there's flagpoles at every building, but,
It's a fairly big one.
it's a big one, yeah.
Lois?
I'm just wondering if we could have an auction and then we'd have it done, and there would be no complaints about favoritism, that, you know, I knew this one, so I got this, and,
That's what the Wisconsin surplus is, it's an online auction.
oh, okay.
Or question, I mean, I'm fine with the auction too, but, being that it's Rusk County property, what if we just put it on the Rusk County website and just have Rusk County members, or whoever from Rusk County, kind of,
I would say put it on both, I mean, the more bids you get, the more money.
Mr. Meyer?
And it looks like this flagpole's fairly close to the clinic. Am I looking at that picture right?
It's on, yeah, it's on, in that little island.
I don't wanna get this frivolous over this stuff, but in all reality, I mean, if something was to happen where we ended up with that clinic, and it ends up being used for the county down the road, there's probably not a cheap flagpole to turn around and have to put back up. But you put the cart in front of the horse on this one, guys, I don't know, that's like, I guess. I mean, if we end up with the building, then we gotta turn around and we're using it for something for county government, we're gonna end up putting a flagpole back up.
The other question would be is whoever's tearing it down, are they gonna put it down back to the way it was and not be a big hole or anything like that?
That's part of what we're gonna ask for in the RFP, yeah. Filling it back in and reading
Don't
it.
cut it off at ground level.
I can do that.
I could happen someday the way it is anyhow.
But, that's a very valid point.
Any other comments, questions? So what is the motion right now?
In the rock. Right, yeah. But I did.
Can't believe they're gonna bring that much money to start with.
What do we wanna, we want till next month?
Cover the demolition, let's just hold off.
I'll rescind my motion.
You can't, if we're this far, just vote no if that's the consensus.
Oh, thank you.
Sorry, guys. but
Okay, vote no.
No. Holy man.
Failed by majority vote. 16-3.
You know what I thought?
Okay, next, authorized elevator decommissioning at old hospital building.
Okay, so this came out of the, property committee. They would like to turn off the utilities out there because it's costing about, or between $2,000 and $2,500 a month, simply to have power out at that hospital building. However, Gary brought it to our attention that if we turn the power off, the elevators will recess into the ground and potentially leak hydraulic oil. So that's something that we don't want to have happen because then we have a hazardous spill on our hands. So TKE is who works on the elevators out there. We've worked with them in the past, so they came out, looked at all four of the elevators. Three have hydraulic oil, one is in the old hospital building, and that's an old police system. And they came back with $64,000 to decommission all four of those elevators, and the scope of work is at the top of this. But again, if we want to move forward with turning the power off, this is something that we should do first, or we risk a hydraulic oils leak.
I'm not mistaken, it's a pretty massive leak, Gary, in there, like 100 and some plus gallons in each
I
elevator.
think I was told 155 gallons.
At each house.
Three of them.
Out of three of them, the Foley one had none.
Right, right.
Any comments, questions?
How should be brought back? What kind of a timeframe do you anticipate on this getting an RFP back?
I mean, I could have it out within a couple of weeks, and if you want it back, it's up to you guys how long you want the timeline to be.
Well, I'm just saying, if you're gonna expect it back in 2 months,
Sure.
you know, basically you're looking at keeping electricity on for an additional 2 months, or decommissioning the elevators at $64,000.
Correct.
Which, you know, if you get the right RFP, you might not have to pay for the decommissioning of the elevator, somebody else might do it, and not cost us anything.
Well, it'd be lumped in with the bid for demolition, right?
So, you know, the 10,000 might be the lesser of two expenses. Or, you know, I mean, I think, you know, we don't need to act on this immediately, it's about, what, $2,500 a month for electric?
Yep.
That's another $5,000 versus $64,000.
Mr. Undershoots.
So they can't just drain the oil, they have to do all the other stuff with it?
Yes, so the oil is in the pump, and the pump is underground. He described the whole process And because the elevators are from the sixties, when they start, it's possible that it's gonna leak anyways, so they might have to, there's contingency in here about bringing a big truck in or something like that. So when they pull up on the pump, the sand that was used to backfill creates kind of a vacuum, and the pump might break, and then that oil is gonna spill. So, yes. to
They
answer
would have to
your
bring a
question.
back truck in and
Yes.
back it out.
That's what
And
it's
clean it all up.
Thank you.
Mr. Meyer?
Gary, don't you need one of these for when you start, I mean, is there gonna be some other items you need to move down to the main floor to get out of there? You're not gonna wanna use the stairs for everything, are you? I mean, don't you need to leave like one maintenance elevator maybe in place for now or something?
It would be ideal, but,
To the whole
I mean, there's not really too much left in there, but, I mean, there's equipment on all the levels that, you know, possibly I could use for courthouse here, I mean, air compressors and stuff like that, and the boiler room, in the kitchen area and stuff like that. But, I mean, there's some pumps, circulating pumps and stuff like that, but, worst case scenario, would have to take them down the stairs or have to get a telehandler and go out a window or something.
Here goes your $2,500 right there.
Yeah, I'm almost wondering if you should leave one up and go and just, I mean, is there a maintenance type elevator in the back or a service type elevator that handles heavier stuff, or are they all just?
I think the main elevators are probably the heavier duty ones. They do have smaller ones that were used for like the housekeepers and stuff, but they're smaller elevators.
Any other questions?
I'm gonna make a motion, or postpone this to the next meeting, because if you can keep the power on for one elevator, you might just keep it on for all of them. Why start tearing the building down if you don't need to?
Yeah, if they gotta come out twice, there was a travel fee in here, so, yeah, I don't know.
You're gonna run the telehandler, you're gonna spend your $2,500 in utility fees, so you might as well just keep them as long as.
There's a motion to postpone till next meeting, right?
Next county board meeting.
Is there a second to that motion?
Yeah, I'll do it.
Any other questions? No other questions? You have to vote on this motion, right?
Motion table.
Vote on a motion to postpone till next month. Seventeen yes, 2 no. Last time we already voted to postpone. That takes care of that. Now I guess we got a closed session. Use of wind down funds at Marshall Clinic Health System, old clinic, parking lot lease at hospital, pursuant to Wisconsin Stat 19.5, Parent 1, Parent E, deliberating or negotiating purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. We have a motion and a second. We are.
How would you say in closed session? You can't. Yeah, you can. No, you can't. Okay. Sure you can.
No, you need a motion to go to closed session.
Okay, now you gotta read that.
You gotta read it.
Co-ownership of 600 Gates Avenue building pursuant to Wisconsin Stat 19.85, Parent 1, Parent C, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require closed session. Got a motion to go into closed session. closed session.